She arrived with the setting sun, carrying a child in her arms, in a past far too dark to speak out loud. At the door of a ranch forgotten by time, she knocked, just looking for shelter for one night, never imagining she'd find more than safety. She'd find a man who had already given up on everything. Two souls, scarred by deep loss, on the verge of discovering that true love often grows from the deepest wounds. But be warned, while fate begins to stitch these broken hearts together, a silent threat lurks in the shadows, ready to destroy it all. Would you have the courage to face your greatest fear for love? Watch until the end, because this story will make you believe that even the deepest wounds can lead to extraordinary new beginnings. She showed up without warning, at the end of a dusty road no one had used in years. With a worn-out backpack slung over her shoulder and a little girl in her arms, she knocked on the door of a man who had long forgotten what it meant to share life with anyone. What she didn't know was that the ranch hid wounds time never managed to heal, and what he never imagined was that fate had just brought back everything he swore he'd never feel again. The story you're about to hear is about refuge, secrets, protection, and a kind of love that begins in silence. But first, a warning. If you love intense, emotional stories with powerful twists, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell, because here, you'll get brand new stories every week, full of suspense, romance, and endings that leave a mark on your heart. And tell me in the comments, from which city or country are you watching this video? I want to know how far this story will travel. She appeared at the ranch entrance, just as the sky was bleeding shades of burnt orange and the dust swirled in the wind. She didn't give a name. She just spoke with a voice that was firm but tired. I just need shelter for one night. Caleb Morgan wasn't expecting visitors, let alone a woman with eyes full of history and a child asleep in her arms. He crossed his arms, looked past her as if searching for danger, but he saw nothing except someone trying hard not to fall apart. And right then, in that hesitation that lasts 1,000 years in just a second, he replied, "Maybe you just found yourself a home." The gate creaked like it was protesting against fate. Emily Grace stepped inside with slow, hesitant steps, like she expected to be sent away at any moment. Caleb didn't offer a smile, just a glass of water and a spot in the empty room where only shadows and the scent of old wood. Lily, her daughter, was sleeping so deeply, it was as if the fear that clung to her mother's skin didn't touch her at all. And Caleb, though he didn't fully understand it, felt something old stir inside him. A silence not born of loneliness, but of the presence of something he couldn't name. Night fell heavy. Emily tucked her daughter into a makeshift bed with clean sheets and forgotten blankets. Caleb watched from a distance. It wasn't distrust. It was caution. And fascination too, though he'd never admit it. She was beautiful, in a way she didn't even know. She carried invisible scars on her shoulders, the kind only those who've lived under threat would recognize. And when her eyes met his, for a brief second, it felt like their pain nodded at each other in quiet recognition. Caleb lit the fireplace. The flames crackled in sync with his thoughts. Emily sat across from him. She didn't ask for permission. He didn't offer any. They sat there, staring at each other like they were trying to decode some ancient language. "You're safe here," he said at last. She nodded, but didn't say thank you. Maybe because she still didn't believe safety could come without a price. Maybe because she was too well trained to trust anything. Lily let out a soft sigh, and Emily rushed to her like the world had just crumbled. Caleb watched, the way she fluffed the pillow, the way her hand moved gently through her daughter's hair. There was a kind of love there, unconditional, pure, almost painful to witness. He turned away, because seeing that hurt. It hurt to remember he once had a family too, that he'd once known that kind of tenderness, and lost it all. Emily came back. "Do you always help strangers like this?" she asked, Caleb stared at the fire, then met her eyes. Only when their eyes tell the truth, the silence returned. But it wasn't empty. It was thick, like something was being built between them. Something slow, fragile, but real. And the first crack in both of their walls had just appeared. The storm came out of nowhere, like the sky decided to remind them it could still come crashing down on those already running from the world. The wind slammed against the windows, and Caleb rushed outside to grab a few tools before they flew. Off the porch, Emily followed without hesitation, grabbing an old towel to cover the box of nails. "You should have stayed inside," he said, his voice raised against the wind. "You should have stopped me," she shot back. And it was in that subtle clash of wounded personalities that the two of them truly understood each other for the first time. Inside the kitchen, Lily was busy with colored pencils and an old notepad. The sound of the rain seemed to soothe her, and she drew with the kind of focus that shuts out chaos. Caleb watched the scene through a crack in the door while Emily peeled off her soaked coat. Her hair clung to her face, eyes low and a shiver. That seemed more emotional than physical. "There's a sweater in the hallway closet," he said. She nodded silently. The silence between them had become its own language, full of everything they didn't know how to say out loud. That night, Emily made soup with whatever she could find in the pantry: potatoes, onions, and a frozen piece of chicken. The house filled with a smell that hadn't visited those walls in years. Caleb sat at the table, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the sound of silverware echoed off those old wooden walls. Lily let out a giggle when she dropped a piece of bread on the floor. Emily laughed too, and Caleb almost smiled, but the serious look returned quickly. Even so, something had shifted. Something no one named, but everyone felt. Later that night, Emily found a fallen picture frame behind the couch. It was an old, faded photo of Caleb, a dark-haired woman, and a small boy in his arms. She didn't ask, but he saw the photo in her hands and said, "My son's name was Michael. He died with his mother in a car accident. It's been 7 years." Emily gently placed the photo back on the shelf and murmured, "I'm sorry." After a moment, she added, "Lily lost her father too, but he's still breathing." And with that, silence returned. But this time, it was different. It was a shared silence. The wind was still howling outside when Emily approached the fireplace. Caleb was sitting there, reading a yellowed letter he had taken from a metal box. When he noticed her near, he folded the paper and tucked it away. Emily didn't push. She just sat beside him. "Do you still hope she'll come back?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "She's gone. But the pain ... still visits." Emily replied in a whisper, "Mine never left." And for the first time, Caleb looked at her with eyes full of something that wasn't pity. It was understanding. It was Lily who broke the weight of the night. "Mommy, can I sleep in the chair?" Caleb felt a jolt inside. That chair, tucked into the corner, had been his late wife's favorite spot. No one touched it. But before he could say a word, Emily gently helped Lily settle into it, as if she understood the sacredness of the space. Lily was asleep within. Seconds, Caleb stood frozen, his breath heavy, as if battling a memory trying to take over. But then, he walked to the bedroom, retrieved a blanket that hadn't been used in years, and draped it gently over the child. Emily watched with tear-filled eyes, and though no words were spoken, she knew that house had started to give in. And in that moment, behind the curtain of the window, a faint light blinked. A car parked at a distance, headlights off, engine dead, but someone was watching the ranch from outside, and none of them had the slightest idea of what was about to unfold. The next morning, Emily woke up with the strange feeling that someone was watching her. The house was too quiet. Lily was still curled up in last night's blanket, and Caleb had already gone out to tend the animals. But something in the air felt off, something the wind couldn't quite blow away. When she approached the window, she saw fresh footprints in the wet dirt, and they weren't Caleb's. These were from heavy, wide boots that came all the way up to the porch, and then vanished. Her heart raced. Because those prints, she recognized them. Even without seeing the face, she knew. He was close. She ran to the barn. Caleb had his back turned, tossing hay to the horses. "Did you notice anything strange last night?" she asked, her voice lower than she intended. He turned slowly. "Why?" She hesitated, then said, "I think someone was here." Caleb dropped the bucket. His eyes darkened like the sky before a storm. "Are you hiding something from me, Emily?" She took a deep breath. "I'm not just looking for shelter. I'm looking for protection." He didn't answer, but his stance shifted, stiff like a wall. Emily knew. Either she told the truth now, or she'd lose everything she was trying to build there. Sitting in the shade of the shed, she told him. She talked about the man who used to control her, Marcus, a polished businessman on the outside, rotten to the core. She spoke of the threats, the scars she carried on her skin and in her memory. She told him how he was trying to take Lily's custody with forged documents, how he bribed lawyers, always winning through intimidation, lies, and manipulation. He doesn't want the child. He wants to silence what I know. He wants to erase me. Caleb listened without interrupting. When she finished, he simply asked, "Do you have proof?" She pulled out an envelope from her backpack. "Enough to put him behind bars, if I make it to the police station alive." Caleb stayed quiet for a time that felt far too long. Then he stood, ran a hand over his beard, and said, "No one touches you here." Or her. Emily nearly broke down, but held herself together. "He's coming back," she warned, "and he'll try through the front door or the shadows." Caleb answered, "Then he'll find both locked." That night, he sealed every window, tested the shotgun, and pulled something back inside himself he hadn't used in years. Courage. While Lily slept, Emily went to the kitchen to make tea. Caleb came in quietly. They stood side by side, saying nothing, just listening to the kettle hiss. Then he spoke. "Do you think you could still love someone?" She turned slowly, startled, as if the question itself was too dangerous to say out loud. "I don't know," she whispered, "but I think I might be starting to remember what it feels like." Caleb didn't reply. He just looked at her for a long, tense moment, then turned his gaze back to the fire. Emily leaned against the sink, trying to steady her breath. Fear still lived inside her, but something new was starting to take root. A feeling that didn't come fast, but came strong. And in that moment, she realized she didn't just feel grateful to Caleb. She felt desire. A quiet, grown, aching kind of desire. He stepped closer. They were just inches apart. Their eyes locked, hearts pounding. "If you want me to stop, I'll stop right now," he said. She didn't answer. She just touched his face with trembling fingers. And then they kissed. Not in a rush, not with promises, but with the raw truth of two survivors who, for once, weren't running. But while their lips met in the warmth of the kitchen, outside, hidden in the forest darkness, a pair of eyes watched from inside a parked car. And in the back seat, a black folder filled with forged documents waited for its next move. The danger hadn't left. It was just waiting for the perfect moment to knock on their door. The morning silence was shattered by the dry crunch of tires on gravel. Caleb recognized the sound before even looking out the window. It wasn't just any car. It was a black sedan, far too sleek and modern to be driving down that old, forgotten road. He stepped out onto the porch, rifle resting against the doorframe, eyes narrowed. Emily rushed to grab Lily and pulled her inside, locking the living room door with trembling hands. The car rolled to a stop slowly, like someone who had all the time in the world, like someone who wanted to be seen. Then the door opened. It was him, Marcus. Impeccable suit, dark sunglasses, and that smile that never quite smiled. Emily's heart nearly stopped. "Good morning, Mr. Morgan," Marcus said, removing his sunglasses like he was greeting an old friend. "I heard you had guests. I'm here to collect what's mine." Caleb didn't answer. He just tightened his grip on the rifle. Marcus held out a folder. Papers. Official statements. Custody rights. All legal. Emily stepped out behind Caleb, not afraid, but boiling with rage. "You have nothing," she said. "You're just trying to bury the truth that could destroy your polished little image. But we're not afraid of you anymore." Marcus stepped forward. "Careful, Emily. You're hiding behind a man you barely know. And when it all falls apart, you'll be alone." Caleb stepped forward too. "She's not hiding. She's protected." Marcus laughed, dry, humorless. "You think you can take me on? I've got connections, power. I've got—" "What?" Caleb cut in. "A forged signature? A history of threats? A judge in your pocket? Go ahead, try." Marcus fell silent for a beat, but his eyes burned. "You'll regret this," he said at last. He turned back toward the car without another word. But before getting in, he glanced back at Emily. "The sheriff's expecting me tomorrow. With or without you. This isn't over." And he drove off, kicking up dust and tension inside the house. Lily curled up on the couch, hugging her worn-out teddy bear. Caleb slammed the door shut. "We're heading to town tomorrow," he said. "Before he does," Emily nodded, still out of breath. "He won't stop," she whispered. "He never does." Caleb stepped closer. "Then neither will we." And this time, she rested her head on his chest, as if somehow, even in the chaos, a small piece of peace could still exist. That night, the ranch didn't sleep. Emily printed out copies of the evidence she had hidden away. Caleb cleaned his rifle, sorted through ammunition. But there was something between them that wasn't just preparation. It was alliance. A silent agreement that now they were in this together. Emily watched him from across the room as he reinforced the back door hinges. And for the first time, she felt it. Maybe she wasn't just being protected. Maybe she was being loved around midnight. While Lily slept, they both ended up on the porch, unplanned. The sky was heavy, stars buried beneath thick clouds. "Are you still afraid?" Caleb asked. Emily hesitated. "Yes, but it's different now. Fear doesn't own me anymore." He stepped closer. "You changed everything in here," he said, touching his chest. "I'd forgotten what it was like to wake up hoping for something good, until you knocked on my door." Emily held his hand. "You saved my life without even knowing my name." He gave a sad smile. "And still, I don't think I've ever known anyone as deeply as I know you." She looked up at him. "Promise me, no matter what happens tomorrow, you won't let go of my hand?" Caleb moved even closer, resting his forehead against hers. "Not even if the world falls, Emily Grace. Not even if the ground disappears." And they kissed again, with urgency, with fear, with longing for something they never had. But just beyond the fence, deep in the night's shadows, the next trap was already being set, and what the sunrise would bring would leave marks neither of them would ever forget. The day broke with an overcast sky and a thick, suffocating heat that made everything feel slower, heavier, like nature itself could sense what was coming. Caleb was saddling Belle, his oldest mare, while Emily packed a small bag with documents and a change of clothes for Lily. "What if he's already there?" she asked. Caleb answered without looking at her. "Then he's going to hear the truth in front of everyone." Lily stepped out of the bedroom, holding the drawing she made the night before. It was Caleb, Emily, and herself, hand in hand with a giant sun in the background. Emily nearly cried, but she folded the paper and tucked it into her shirt pocket. Like a shield, on the way into town, silence ruled the truck. Emily stared out the window as if expecting something or someone to appear at any moment. Caleb gripped the wheel with one hand and hovered the other near the gearshift, fully alert. Lily slept in the back seat, her head bobbing with every bump. When they saw the church bell tower in the distance, Emily whispered, "It's almost time." Caleb, eyes still on the road, said, "We're going in together. We'll walk out the same way." But neither of them knew that Marcus was already inside the sheriff's office, delivering a carefully crafted version of the story. Joseph Allen, the town sheriff, was a soft-spoken man with a graying beard and a calm presence. When Caleb and Emily walked in, he greeted them with a neutral tone. "I've already heard one version of this story this morning," he said. "Now I want to hear yours." Emily handed over the envelope, printed emails, medical records, assault statements. Joseph reviewed everything in silence. Meanwhile, Marcus, seated across the room, maintained that smug look, like it was all just theater, and he already knew how the play would end. "Those papers mean nothing without a court order," he said with a smirk. But Joseph cut him off. "They mean you've got a lot to explain." For the first time, Marcus lost the smile. The tension in the room felt physical. Caleb stepped forward. This woman ran to save her daughter. "If you can't protect that, Sheriff, just say it now." Joseph looked up from the documents. "I can, but I need time." Marcus jumped to his feet. "You're making a mistake. I'm the girl's only living relative." "By law," Emily interrupted, her voice shaky but steady. "You were never family. Not to me, not to her. And if this town still has a shred of justice, it'll prove that today." Joseph stood. "Until this is investigated, no one takes this child from her mother. No one." His voice echoed through the room, and Marcus stormed out, spitting threats on his way. Outside, Caleb held Emily's hand tight. But before they could even process the sheriff's decision, screeching tires ripped through the street. Marcus was in the driver's seat, and from the passenger side, a man no one recognized jumped out, gun drawn, aiming straight at Caleb. The street froze. Lily screamed. Emily instinctively stepped in front. Caleb raised his hands slowly, trying to stay calm. "This isn't how you get what you want," he said. But the man was jumpy, sweating, shaking. "I just want her. Her and the kid." Caleb stepped forward. "Then you're gonna have to get through me first." Time stopped, the man's finger on the trigger. Caleb's eyes locked and unflinching. Emily's scream swallowed by the pounding of her heart. Then the sheriff's office door burst open, and Joseph emerged, gun drawn. "Drop it, now." The man hesitated, stepped back, and then a gunshot split the world in two. The bullet hit the ground near Caleb's foot. Joseph fired back, striking the man in the shoulder. Chaos erupted. Marcus sped off, disappearing into a cloud of dust. Caleb ran to Emily and Lily, pulling them both into his arms with a grip that said, "I'm never letting go." And there, in the middle of the town's main street, surrounded by sirens and panicked voices, Emily pressed her forehead against Caleb's chest and whispered, "You could have run. You could have left me. But you stayed," he answered, voice breaking. "Staying for you was the only easy decision I've ever made." But what they didn't know was that, at that very moment, an arrest warrant was being signed And it wasn't for Marcus. It was for someone no one ever expected. The sheriff's siren faded into the distance as the sky began to darken, even though it was still afternoon. Emily sat on the wooden bench in front of the station, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Caleb was beside her, his shirt torn at the shoulder, a reminder of how close that bullet had come. Lily was asleep in her mother's lap, worn out from the chaos of the day. Joseph Allen walked out of the building, his expression tense. "We need to talk," he said, looking straight at Caleb. "Now?" Emily's eyes widened. "What's going on?" she asked. Joseph took a deep breath. "A court order just came in. A warrant was activated this morning. In your name, Mr. Morgan." Caleb frowned. "What do you mean?" The sheriff pulled a crumpled paper from his pocket. "They're charging you with obstruction of justice and kidnapping." Emily stood up, her face pale as chalk. "That's insane. He protected me. He protected my daughter." Joseph raised a hand. "I believe you. But the warrant came from Santa Fe, signed by a state judge who, from what I can tell, was bribed." Caleb rubbed his face. "That's Marcus. He set this up." Joseph nodded. "He's been planning it for weeks, just waiting for you two to show up." Emily gripped Caleb's arm, panic flooding her eyes. "Are they going to arrest you?" Caleb looked at her calm. "Not yet. Not while I can still fight for us." Joseph brought them into a back room in the station. There, Emily handed over a second envelope, letters she'd hidden for years. Evidence of bribery, threatening messages, and a photo of Marcus dining with the judge in a private event. "This has to be enough," she pleaded. Joseph studied the documents. "It's solid, but it'll take time. And until then, the warrant stands." Caleb clenched his fists but stayed composed. "Then we disappear for a while," he said. "Go back to the ranch. Reinforce the fence. If it's war he wants, it's war he'll get." Joseph nodded. "I'll buy you some time, but you need to be gone before sundown." On the road back, Emily couldn't hold back the panic. "This is all my fault. You're going to lose everything. Because of me." Caleb glanced at her steady. "I haven't lost anything. I gained you. And I'm not letting anyone take that from me." She turned away, tears streaming down her face. "You should let me go. I can run. I can hide. If I disappear, he'll stop." Caleb pulled over suddenly, turned to her, eyes burning. "Emily, listen to me. You're the first thing that's made me feel alive in years. Don't ask me to leave you, because I won't." And then he pulled her close and kissed her, like time had run out. The kiss was deep, desperate, like they were pouring every fear and every vow into it. Emily cried between his lips, and Caleb wept, his arms around her, not from weakness, but from the instinct to shield. "I don't know what's coming tomorrow," she whispered against his mouth. "But if I have to run, I want to run with you." He rested his forehead on hers. "Then we'll run together until the end." Lily stirred in the back seat and looked at them with wide, sleepy eyes, that kind of childlike gaze that sees more than it says. "We're going to be okay, right, Mommy?" Emily smiled through her tears. "We are, baby. We really are." When they reached the ranch, the sky had turned violet, and night fell with a strange heaviness. Caleb parked the truck inside the barn and shut off the lights. "We're keeping everything dark tonight," he said. "No risks." Emily nodded. They entered the house quietly. While Lily sat drawing by candlelight, Caleb reinforced the doors and loaded the shotgun. Emily watched, unsure whether she felt more fear or gratitude. But then, as she pulled back a curtain to check the window, she saw it. Out there, at the top of the hill, a red light, small, blinking. Someone was watching them. And this time, It came with a scope. The red dot pulsed like an electronic heartbeat in the darkness, fixed against the outer wall of the house. Emily froze. "Caleb," she whispered, her voice low but laced with urgency. He dropped what he was doing and rushed to the window. The moment he saw it, he didn't hesitate. He blew out the last candle in the room, plunging the house into pitch black. The sound of their breathing was all that remained. Lily, far too aware for her age, clutched her old teddy bear tight. Emily pulled her into the bedroom, locked the door, and placed herself between her daughter and the wall. Caleb moved to the back of the house, to where he kept what he called his emergency plan. And this time, it wasn't just a rifle. Behind a false panel in the closet, he pulled out a metal case, old military gear from his time in the Gulf, night vision binoculars, a portable radio, and a worn-out Kevlar vest. This stuff shouldn't even exist anymore, he muttered to himself. But when the threat wears a suit and bends the law, any defense becomes survival. He crept to the rear window, scanning the hill with the binoculars. The red dot had vanished, but the feeling that they were surrounded only intensified. "They're testing us," he said when he returned, "waiting for us to slip." In the bedroom, Emily was shaking, not from fear of the dark, but from the sickening feeling that the hell she'd once escaped had found a new address. Caleb walked in, and when he saw her sitting with Lily on her lap, something inside him cracked. "This isn't a life," she whispered. "She's just a child." Caleb knelt beside the bed, took Emily's hand in his, and said, "She's going to grow up knowing what protection means. And you'll know what it feels like to be loved without having to run." Emily looked into his eyes. "Do you?" "Swear?" He nodded. "On my life." And there, in the hush of darkness, a vow was made. Outside, a car approached slowly along the trail. No headlights, no sound. Only the crunch of tires on loose gravel gave it away. Caleb grabbed the shotgun and slipped out the back door, moving through the shadows of the porch. Emily stayed with Lily, her body tense, eyes locked on the doorknob, like it might turn on its own. Caleb took cover behind a pile of firewood and took aim. The car came to a stop 20 meters from the house. The door opened with a soft creak. A tall man stepped out, wearing a wide-brimmed hat and a leather jacket. It wasn't Marcus. The man walked calmly toward the porch, holding a folder in one hand. "I didn't come for a fight," he called out. "Name's Anthony Cordell, Federal. Investigator." Caleb didn't lower the weapon. "Prove it." The man tossed something on the ground, a badge. Caleb crept closer, picked it up, and verified it. Emily stepped onto the porch, still wary. Anthony looked at her with a serious expression. "You're not the only ones being threatened. We've been building a case against Marcus for months. But we need a living witness." Emily swallowed hard. "If I speak, he'll never stop hunting me." Anthony answered firmly. "If you don't speak, he'll keep hunting others." Inside, Lily sat drawing alone at the table. On the paper, she had sketched the dark car, the red dot, and 3 people holding hands behind the house. When Emily walked in and saw it, her chest tightened. Caleb and Anthony were talking in the hallway, weighing their options. But Emily already knew. The decision had been made. She walked back to the living room, knelt before her daughter, and said, "We're going to do the right thing, okay?" Lily nodded with wide eyes. "I'm with you." And that was the moment Emily realized. She wasn't running anymore. She was, for the first time, standing her ground. And that changed everything. The ranch's living room, now lit only by an emergency lamp, had become an improvised war room. Emily spread the papers across the table, threatening letters, bank statements with suspicious deposits, medical records. Agent Cordell jotted everything down in a black notebook. asking calm but precise questions. Caleb stood behind her in silence, like a human shield. "This is more than enough to reopen the case in Santa Fe," Cordell said, stroking his chin. "But if you want, this man gone for good, we're going to need you to testify in court." Emily took a deep breath. It was a choice between eternal fear or risking a real new beginning. Lily played quietly in the corner with her teddy bear, but she heard every word. Emily looked at her, then at Caleb. "I'm going to do it, not just for me, not just for her, but for all the ones who came before me and didn't make it." Caleb nodded. "You won't be alone." Anthony Cordell offered a serious smile. "You'll need to disappear for a few days. Once he realizes he's losing control, he'll strike." Emily held up Lily's drawing, the one with the red dot. "He already did. Now it's my turn." That night, Anthony drove them up into the mountains, to a cabin hidden deep in the hills, far from the ranch, the road, and the rest of the world. A wooden house. Simple but safe. Stay here until I call. Keep the radios on at all times. Before he left, Caleb pulled him aside. "If anything happens to them, I'll go after him myself." Cordell didn't flinch. "It won't happen, but if it does, I hope you'll take me with you." Then he disappeared down the road. Swallowed by the pitch-black night, Emily and Caleb lay side by side in the cabin's only bed. Lily slept between them, one small hand clutching the hem of her mother's shirt. The silence was so deep, they could hear the wind slipping through the cracks in the wooden walls. "Are you scared?" Caleb asked. Emily hesitated, then whispered, "Yeah, but it's different now. I'm not scared of dying anymore. I'm scared of losing this, what we've started to build." He turned to her. "Then we won't lose it. I won't let that happen." And for the first time, she believed him without doubt. There was truth in his voice. And love. In the middle of the night, Emily woke up startled. A nightmare. Old images slashing back into her mind. Screams, slamming doors, threats. She got up quietly and stepped onto the porch, staring into the darkness. Caleb joined her moments later, wrapped in a blanket. "Bad dream?" She nodded. "They never really leave." He pulled her into his arms, resting his face against hers. "Mine come back too. Every night. But with you here, they hurt less." Emily closed her eyes. "Caleb, I love you." He paused, as if hearing those words for the first time in his life. "I love you too, Emily Grace. You're what's left of me, and the only reason I want to begin again." The kiss came as a response, long, gentle, filled with tears between lips and shivers that had nothing to do with the cold. It was a kiss of promise, of surrender, of everything they'd never been given. And even there, high in the mountains with no guarantees of tomorrow, in that kiss, there was home. But while they clung to each other, far below, a new visitor reached the mountain road. A dark car, headlights off, engine creeping, and in the back seat, Marcus, grinning with clenched teeth. "Found you," he muttered as he killed the engine and opened the door. The silence of the night was broken by the barely audible crunch of heavy boots over dry leaves. Caleb heard it first. He stopped the kiss abruptly, eyes sharp like a wolf catching the scent of danger. "Someone's here," he whispered. Emily froze, her body tense. He ran inside the cabin, grabbed the shotgun, and blew out the kerosene lamp in one swift motion. Emily locked the front door quietly, then rushed to Lily and pulled her under the bed, covering her with blankets. "Don't make a sound, baby," she said, her voice shaking. "Mommy's right here." Outside, footsteps approached, slow, calculated. Caleb positioned himself by the window, aiming through a crack in the boards. Then he saw him, Marcus, gun in hand. Another man at his side, a brute with empty, brutal eyes. "I know you're in there," Marcus called out. "You thought you could take me down with paperwork and a sob story? I am the system, and the system doesn't lose." Caleb opened the door wide, shotgun raised. "Take one more step, Marcus, and I swear you won't live to see the sunrise." Marcus chuckled. "You won't shoot, not with a kid inside. You're too good for that." Caleb didn't blink. "Try me." Emily crouched low on the floor, trembling, not with fear, but rage, exhaustion, fury at seeing her daughter live through this nightmare, at watching her past demons claw their way into the future she was finally building. Then she did the unthinkable. She opened the back window, crawled out silently, circled the cabin, and grabbed a large rock. With all her strength, she hurled it at Marcus's thug. The man dropped to his knees, howling. Marcus turned, caught off guard, and that's when Caleb moved. One precise shot struck the ground inches from Marcus's foot. The next one hits your knee. Marcus lost the smirk. He dropped his weapon and raised his hands. "Fine. You win. What now? You going to arrest me?" Caleb stepped closer. "You're going to pay, but not by my hands." That's when a truck engine roared up the trail. Headlights flashed across. The scene, it was Anthony Cordell. "Drop your weapons," he shouted. Everyone on the ground. Caleb stepped back. Marcus stayed still. Within seconds, Cordell had cuffed the former partner and tossed him into the back seat like roadside trash. The judge cracked. "The warrant's gone. And you, Marcus? You're going exactly where you belong." Emily ran into Caleb's arms, crying. "Is it over?" He looked into her eyes, his own brimming. "It's over." But it wasn't just the end of a threat. It was the end of the running, the end of fear as a daily companion. Cordell gave them a sideways smile. Never seen anyone flip the script with that much courage. "You made history tonight." Lily rushed out of the cabin, leaped into her mother's arms, then hugged Caleb tight. "Can we go home now?" she asked. Caleb lifted her up. "We never have to leave again." Before the sun rose, Cordell said goodbye with one last promise. "You'll be protected. Justice is finally on the right side." When his car disappeared down the dirt road, Emily and Caleb sat quietly on the porch. For a long while, they didn't speak. Just listened to the wind, now gentle. Emily rested her head on his shoulder. "I used to think love was just a break between tragedies," Caleb smiled. "And I thought pain was all that was left after the end." She looked up at him. "But maybe love begins after the last wound." He kissed her again. And this time, there was no urgency. Only peace. But far away, in a dimly lit jail cell, Marcus received a visitor. A new lawyer, tall, calm, voice, sharp eyes. The kind of man who knows every dark corner of the law. "They think they've won," Marcus sneered. The lawyer replied, "They don't know who they're dealing with. And the story just might not be over yet." 6 months had passed since that night in the cabin, and the world around them seemed to have changed seasons along with them. The Morgan Ranch had come back to life, now filled with laughter, the smell of fresh bread in the morning, and the soft music Emily played on the old battery-powered radio while Lily ran through the fields, light and free, as if every blade of grass had been grown just to protect her. Caleb was building a new stable with his own hands, hammering wood and rebuilding, at the same time, his own soul. Emily, in turn, had transformed the room where loneliness once slept into a home. And for the first time, she allowed herself to decorate, to color, to belong. The hearings came and went without surprises. Marcus was convicted for bribery, document forgery, abuse, and attempted kidnapping. His name made headlines for weeks. a symbol of a system that was finally starting to crack. Emily testified with courage, her voice steady, her hands ice cold. Caleb was there the whole time, sitting in the front row. Lily didn't go to court. She stayed at the ranch, playing with the little puppy Caleb had adopted just for her. "She's a handful, but worth every second," he said every time he found a chewed-up shoe. Emily would smile. She knew he wasn't just talking about the dog. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, Caleb took Emily to the highest point of the ranch, where the view reached far into the mountains. There stood a simple wooden bench, freshly built, with a small plaque carved into the backrest. Emily read it silently, the place where it all began. Caleb knelt in front of her. "I don't have a ring. I don't have a fancy speech, but I have a heart that learned how to beat again. Because of you," Emily cried without shame. "I don't need any of that. I just need you, here, today, and every day." Caleb kissed her under the sunset, with the sound of horses in the distance, the scent of wet earth in the air, and the unshakable feeling that now they had roots. They had home. But that same night, a letter arrived in the mail. No sender, sealed with an old, worn stamp. Caleb opened it with suspicion. The yellowed paper carried only a few chilling words. "Not everything buried stops breathing. Beware of the shadows that still know your name." Emily read it over his shoulder, her blood turning cold. Was it him? She whispered. Caleb looked to the horizon, his eyes darkening. "I don't know, but someone still wants us afraid." She grabbed his hand. "Then let's show them we're not." The days that followed were calm but heavy, as if something unseen was lurking, waiting for a crack to slip through. One early morning, Lily woke up terrified. She said she saw a shadow outside her window. Caleb searched the entire property, found no one. But on the back fence, wedged between two wires, was a black ribbon. Caleb kept it. He didn't tell Emily, not yet. The next day, he reinforced all the locks, reinstalled the cameras, and dug a deep hole near the shed. There, he buried the ribbon and the letter. "You won't grow up in fear," he whispered, watching Lily from a distance. "Not while I can stop it." Later, sitting on the porch with Emily, he finally told her about the ribbon. She listened in silence, then rested her head on his shoulder. "If we have to fight again, we will." He looked sideways at her. "Only this time, we're not alone anymore." Emily smiled. "No, now we're a home. And homes defend themselves." The camera slowly pulled back, revealing the three of them sitting on the porch. The man who learned how to love, the woman who discovered she could be protected without being silenced, and the little girl who, for the first time, slept without fear of tomorrow. But somewhere far away, a phone rang. An aged hand picked it up. A voice on the other end said simply, "They're still alive." The answer came in a whisper, "And there's still work to be done." The screen faded to black, and the story, which seemed over, simply breathed in silence. If this story touched you in any way, take a deep breath right now, because this isn't just about love or running away. It's about new beginnings, about the courage to stay, about building something, even when everything tells you it's safer to run. Emily, Caleb, and Lily aren't just characters. They're each of us. In that moment, we decide not to let fear win. And if you felt that in your chest, drop a comment below saying, "I believe in the power of starting over." I'd love to know you stayed with us till the very end. Now tell me, what was the part that moved you the most? Was it their first kiss, the promise on the porch, or when they finally stood up as a real family? Type it down in the comments. And don't forget to leave a like if this video had you hooked from beginning to end. Your support means everything. And of course, Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell. This channel is your place for powerful stories, filled with twists, heartbreak, healing, and hope, every single week, right in your feed. And please share this video with someone who also believes that, even after the storm, it's still possible to find home. See you in the next story.